Welcome to Virtuous Society. I'm your host, Itamar, where we explore the art of Web3 gaming, community building, and much more. Today's guest is Jase, the head of community and marketing at Moonfrost. Jase applied the skills and character traits he picked up during his military service in order to start contributing and, soon after, to actually leading the marketing and community efforts of a game he actually truly loved. And I think in a lot of ways, his story is everything that I very much appreciate in the Web3 gaming culture. His unique journey offers incredible insights into fostering loyalty, engagement, and growth even without a huge marketing budget or a massive team. And I think it's a conversation that everyone could learn something from. A huge thank you for Jase for joining us. Enjoy the episode. Thank you very much for joining us, Jase. How are you?
Yeah, you're welcome. It's good to be here. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to ask you first and foremost, what is your role in Moonfrost?
So my role is the head of community and marketing at Moonfrost. So, and a lot of other things, but we'll jump into that.
Okay, so before we would jump into like the nitty gritty stuff, I wanted to ask, why does your work and what Moonfrost is doing also matters?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't want to sound like really cheesy, but I wouldn't consider it work. I wouldn't consider it work. It's more of a lifestyle choice. And I'm more than happy to kind of delve into this. But when it comes to why does it matter, to me personally, life is about communicating and building relationships with people. So I have the pleasure of being the front person to actually lead that in Moonfrost, which we believe is a game people actually want to play, and it hopefully will make their lives better. So
nice. So what do you mean by lifestyle?
I'd say, like, traditionally, if you look at most people, they do a 9-to-5 job. They clock in their hours. They usually will leave their work at the door, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not complaining about that. I've never had a 9-to-5 job. I'm 31, and my entire career has always been via lifestyle, and that's due to my background being in the military, where you don't have 9-to-5. So I'm sure you're aware of that as well. So the lifestyle choice is what I want to kind of do for Moonfrost.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit more like about Moonfrost. How did you actually get there, first and foremost?
Yep. So Moonfrost is a life farm sim. And it's been created by someone, or it's founded by someone called Gina and Rick. So they have like a very, very traditional background in the games industry. And Rick was actually one of the key people and the lead mobile developer for Stardew Valley Mobile. So he worked really, really closely for the original Stardew Valley IP. And they wanted to bring a game that is similar to other games, but actually offering something fresh and new. And that really comes through kind of with our art style being a 2D, 3D isometric pixel art style, which no other game has done. And also offering a premium experience for free-to-play players. So that's Moonfrost. What was your second part of the question, sorry?
How did you actually get here? Like you mentioned that you mentioned the military, and I'm sure we'll dive deeper into that, but how did you get into Web3 gaming?
Good question. So it started about 3 years ago. So I was in the military. I was still serving. I was actually on a deployment in Ghana, strangely enough. And I've been into crypto for a while. And then I kind of found Web3 gaming about 3 years ago. And there was a different game. And I bumped into Rick and Gina, virtually, of course, actually through like an NFT sale when that was like the hype and the trend. And I was there like, oh, this is cool. What's this? Didn't have a clue about it. At the time, I was volunteering on a game called Conqueror's Blade. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but essentially running traditional gamer guilds. So organizing 200 people to come in and essentially do like a Rome Total War style big battle. So I bumped into Rick and Gina there, and I've always had a passion for kind of community building, and that's stemmed from that and being a traditional gamer when running home playing Call of Duty and World of Warcraft. So it started at that and then led into getting to know Rick and Gina a little bit, and then saying like, hey, like, I actually am very, very passionate about what you're trying to build. What would you say if I just kind of come on as like a moderator? And at that time, the team was like just starting out. So they're like, yeah, of course. They were happy for the help. So I started off as a moderator. I then was like doing social media on the side. And I noticed, I was like, hey, like your social media at the moment, you don't really have much. I think I can provide some value here because I've always been into that as well. And lucky for me, my wife has done that for years. So I was able to learn off of her a lot. So then I started doing social media for Moonfrost. And then this kind of snowballed. It started off as like a voluntary thing, then a very, very small paid position, then into social media, into community manager. And I've been working for Rick and Gina now and helping build Moonfrost for just under 3 years. And that's where my roles kind of developed into where it is today. And yeah, that's how I got into Web3 gaming. So
that's really cool. That's really, really cool. Is there any like other team members that share the same like experience of coming in from pretty much like starting early in the community and then taking full-time positions in the team, or is it just you?
I'd say I'm very lucky, but also most of the team, well, all of the team are from a traditional gaming background. Like they're most of them are very, very senior. So it's quite kind of weird how I've come in completely different angle. And they're like, who's this guy? But no, yeah. So especially in the community team. So
that's the grit, pretty much. We have enough grit and enough bravery. I think that's a very cool story. I wanted to ask really just about your functioning role. So you're pretty much a one-man team at the moment. How does that work? Like, how does your day-to-day kind of looks like?
Yeah, no, it's quite funny. So I think my official title is like head of marketing community. I am a one-man band. We were a lot. The studio is actually larger, so we actually used to have a marketing community team. There was 2 people full time on the marketing side, and then we also had a community team below that, which is kind of built around a community manager, paid moderators. Very, very kind of like traditional setup. We actually downscaled, so now I'm the only person who does anything to do with marketing and community. So I could say, yes, I'm the head of community and marketing, but I'm also the intern, the reply guy, and then anything which touches kind of any marketing channel or community. So community manager, social media management, content creation, business development with partners, website, email, anything you can throw at, I try to do my best at. So.
That's a lot. How do you navigate it? Like because it's a lot of responsibility. How do you navigate it?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's a lot of responsibility, and I'm a massive proof of work person, not the crypto kind, but like if I can show someone I can do the work before taking on that role and responsibility, then there's no risk for that person because they're like, oh, you said you're a good social media manager. Well, how about I make you some demo campaigns? And then we try them. And then if they perform better than what you've got already, well, that's an improvement. It's not perfect. I am not a specialist at all in any single element. But what I'd like to consider myself as, and this is all from the military, is like the Swiss Army knife. So I can do most things to a high level, but I'm not a specialist in any particular role.
Interesting. So for many projects, for many teams, not having enough runway, enough budgets, enough money for marketing, for KOLs, for whatever, it's often kind of that's being pinpointed as the reason we couldn't do this, that, or the other. How do you kind of navigate your work without necessarily having the resources?
I think it comes down to like a few different things. One of those is like who you're building and what you're building. And for me, like I was really lucky to find Rick and Gina, but they wanted to build something that no one else is building. And part of that is not having the massive budgets to market this game to the masses. Like we can't do traditional user acquisition. It's way too expensive. So that then makes us sit down and go like, well, what can we do? And then you start to explore options that way. And one thing which I'm a big believer of, and I think Web3 especially really leans into this, is innovation is key. And starting a trend rather than being just a trend follower will give you a lot more leverage when you're growing. So that's something I've really kind of took into, if we're going to be building Moonfrost and we don't have massive AAA budgets to market this game, how can we first create a core audience, then start to build that into a community, and then start to build it into kind of advocate level, and kind of playing into that.
So you have achieved, I would say, significant reach, like 150K kind of across, without really spending. So what was the secret there? Like, how did you actually manage to get it without spending the money?
Yeah. So the first thing is like what I believe is the product needs to fix the problem. Like in our case, like I said, Moonfrost is a free-to-play premium experience life farm sim. There is only one other game on the market in the traditional gaming industry that offers that, and that's Palia. So for us, we're like, okay, well, there's only one person doing it. They had a massive team, a massive budget of like over 250. They've made severe like cutbacks. So we're like, okay, well, that's something we started similar time, but they've obviously done different route. I think they're a bit longer than us. That was one of the things, was like the product needs to fix a problem. And then we leaned into our strengths. So Moonfrost is beautiful. And I'm like, obviously I'm going to say that, but that's like our number one feedback from players, viewers, audience members. Like, wow, this looks amazing. So already like we're at an advantage.
It's a side note, but I have to say it, like the carrots look really fucking good. I don't know why, but the carrots specifically look really fucking good.
Awesome. I'm happy with that. So I have no element of art direction on this game, and I think everyone is thankful for that, because I am not an artist. But that works for us, right? So if our game is visually appealing, instantly that's a visual hook. So social media seems like one of the better places to kind of try and attract users, because we've got something unique which people may like or essentially love. So one of those things was the kind of benefit of social media and kind of getting that reach to players. And that's why our trailer kind of went viral on Twitter.
You obviously had the trailer, but have you kind of encouraged your community or your audience to create content with pretty much like screenshots or just screen sharing the actual game?
Yeah, so for the trailer itself, there wasn't anything. So the trailer was actually released before we had any kind of testing, which is externally. So that was kind of that one trailer, and then the tweet took so much time to create. It went through so many iterations. I looked at, from my standpoint, I looked at other games' release trailers, what they were doing, how they were doing it, and then also the copy to go behind it, leading into the community, learning about when they're active, what they like, what they dislike. So the trailer was kind of its own campaign, and we were really lucky for it to get so much traction. I think we had like 8 million views or 8 million impressions, 2.5 million views on Twitter, which was really, really strong for us. But when you asked about kind of like more community facing, and for our first release, it was kind of under NDA, just because we wanted to do some close testing. So there was no streaming, you couldn't see anything. And we only did that with about 500 kind of our core players at the time. After that, we were like, this approach isn't working. It was very, very similar to the traditional approach, where you kind of close doors, you don't share much. And I was like, well, this isn't going to work, because one of the things I'm trying to do is be like people focused, but data orientated. So I want people to kind of become a part of the community and build those relationships, because that's one of the things I really enjoy in life. But then also being data focused. So like if a campaign doesn't work, why doesn't it work? And then matching those two together. So throughout later releases, we encourage people to start sharing, creating content. There was no incentives behind this. When we started off, it was literally just like, if you want to share it, share it. If you want to stream it, stream it. We'll support you. And we're like help you reach new community members, new people for your kind of audience. But essentially, it was all organic.
So supporting by amplifying, pretty much.
Yes, it's more like empowerment of users.
Yeah, I got it. So you reached 8 million impressions with one trailer. I want to explore that a little bit further, because that's interesting. What was the process? Like you mentioned that there was a lot of work that played into the campaign of the trailer. Can you share a little bit more regarding like what did you actually did in order to achieve those outcomes?
From creating the trailer standpoint or marketing the trailer standpoint?
Both, really.
Creating the trailer, I wasn't really heavily involved with that. The team we knew where Moonfrost sits within the traditional gaming industry of what players like, what players don't like. So when we created the trailer, we looked at similar games, similar trailers, what performed well, and said, well, what does our game have, which their game shares a common theme with? And that's kind of where it began. And we wanted the trailer to almost tell a story to the user. So if anyone hasn't seen a trailer, I'd highly suggest watching it. It almost feels like you're learning about the player, learning about the world and the character as this trailer progresses, which I think a lot of games kind of miss out on, is that deeper emotional connection to the viewer. And that was kind of how the trailer was built from the team. I can touch on marketing as well if you'd like.
Yeah, I would. I would very much, because you said that there was a lot of, let's say, data collecting and kind of setting up to that crescendo of actually releasing, and it seems to have worked very well. So I'm interested in exploring what have you done that other people that are potentially listening to this episode, can take to their own thing and maybe use.
For the trailer or just general marketing?
I would say for the trailer specifically, just because it's a very strong showing in terms of the impressions.
Yeah, no, definitely, I understand that. So what we try and do, but like I said, it all comes down to trying to keep that marketing budget down or marketing spend down, so we've got more money for runway. And so one of the things I've learned, I didn't make this up, but it's kind of leveraging organic traction. So one of the things we can do is okay, well, if a post is naturally doing really, really well, and you've tailored this post and you expect it to do well, but you never know with social media. Sometimes it just flops. You're like, oh, I just spent hours on this. But if you start to get good organic traction, you can obviously provide it a helping hand with leverage. So the trailer itself, it started, I think it got to about 800,000 views organically. And we were very, very lucky to kind of hit that threshold with the right hook visually, right hook via the copy and the content, making it visually appealing through both, I think is a big thing when there's not too much text. Offering something in the copy which makes them want to watch the video, not watch till the end. I think that's quite generic. But if you put something in, especially with copy, like a secret inside of the messaging itself, so digital collectibles, for example, it spikes curiosity. So that'll be the kind of two things: is the hook visual and then the hook via the copy, and and make sure the copy is kind of SEO friendly to your product. And then we used kind of boosting. So we actually used some marketing spend, but it was really, really low on kind of getting that from sub 1 million to above. And what was interesting was we boosted that campaign from about 800,000 to about 2 million impressions. Then after that, it just blew off organic because you're leveraging content that works organically.
Yeah. Have you made more content with the trailer besides just the trailer, sliced it off to small segments, shorts and stuff? Yep. Where did you post that? Everywhere?
I'd say it'll come it's hard, like I said, because I'm a one-man band. I can't do everything to the highest ability. So when we initially had the trailer, we didn't have much gameplay. So I went through the trailer and kind of dissected it and put it into kind of short form videos or GIFs, and then tried to test that. And what was really interesting was it worked. So one trailer, which was kind of very costly to make from the time perspective from the team, I was able to make a lot of content out of that. And I think we had another post. It was literally, I was trying to lean into relatability with the audience and not just players, people that love animals. So I made I think it was a 3-second GIF of a chicken, one of our chickens from the trailer. And this thing, I wouldn't say it goes viral, but I think it has something like 4,000 likes on Twitter. It's got over 500k impressions, and it's just relatability works.
And it's just chickens, pretty much.
It literally, I think the copy said does your Monday suck? Don't worry, here's a chicken. Literally things like that. But that brand awareness gave us 500 followers just from a single tweet, which is repurposed.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting, and I love I love pretty much the go-getting attitude of taking something and stretching it and really utilizing as much as you can. And you obviously did a very good job by doing it. You mentioned that you learned. Did you have no marketing background before Moonfrost? Just the 3 years in Moonfrost and that's it?
I wouldn't say I didn't have a traditional way into marketing. So in the Marines, that's what I served in the military. I was actually a lead on recruitment for Wales and West Midlands of the entire England and Wales. So I knew how to market because I was getting people recruited into Marines.
You were getting leads
into the
much.
gaming. Yeah.
So yeah, just different. Okay, so you had a background from there, and then you just applied it with your wife's help a little bit to understand social media and applied it. That's so interesting. So how do you really just like balance, especially with the fact that you are a one-man show, the kind of the need to build brand awareness and getting more people and getting more eyes, while also just cultivating a community that is actually like engaged and close together? Like how do you juggle both?
What I try to do, and try is to be the key word in that. And there's kind of what I actually do. And from our approach, like I said before, we are quite closed. Then we decided we want to be more open and community facing. So part of brand awareness for us is to get a user from the top of the kind of the funnel, which is kind of the brand awareness piece, finding about us, down into the community advocate, because it then repeats the cycle. So if you've got a super fan, they'll then talk about your game to friends. They may create content organically, which then loops back in. So for me, I try to split it 50-50 on marketing community. Brand awareness is really, really important because we need people to find out about this game. Otherwise, it won't be successful. And when it comes down to that, I usually time block. I'm a big fan of it. So my calendar, it literally looks like Tetris. Like every single part of my calendar is filled up with different colors, with different things. And I try and be quite meticulous when it comes to data. So if I spent an hour every day on community engagement, on not a community platform, like a social media platform like TikTok or Twitter, what does that give me after doing it for 2 weeks? Is it worth my time? Because that's not necessarily community building, like being a reply guy. It's good for impressions and things like that, like brand awareness, like I'm sure you're aware, but it's not really strengthening that relationship to that user, and then kind of matching that up.
Interesting. So do you have any like something specific that you're using, like a tool that you're using for everything, or just like you're using the native social media tool and just checking that out?
Right now, my current stack is Fedica. So it's kind of like a social media tool, which you can kind of tailor content towards it. You can get the analytics, which is kind of what I really like about the platform. But most of the stuff is done through there. If it's scheduled, if I can schedule or do the community management kind of reply response on there. Otherwise, I use the kind of natural tools, apart from TikTok, because I think that they kind of nerf it when you use a third party.
Interesting.
I've been doing some testing.
Very interesting. Some nuggets. Very cool. I wanted to dive deeper into like the military background. So do you think your military background shaped your approach to community building in any way?
100%, without a doubt.
How would you say it shaped it?
I think it was, everyone's experience in life is completely different to each other. And finding that relatable kind of interaction with people is really, really challenging. And as a marketer, you need that relatability. Otherwise, why would someone click on your post? Why would someone scroll through Twitter and stop? So my military background, everyone's is obviously slightly different. I did 10 years. I was in the Royal Marines Commandos in the UK, and it's really kind of a unique setup. They don't have specialists until after 2 years. So you do 2 years general duties, and then after that you specialize. So it means you can get a lot more experiences. And I was very, very lucky in my 10 years to be deployed to 40 countries. Most of those countries didn't speak English. So I had to learn how to communicate, which is how we started into our community building.
That's really interesting. Like from, I'm going to show some Game 7 perspective as well. Like the John, who's been on the show also, but is pretty much the guy behind the Game 7 portal and everything that we're doing with skill trees and whatever, and trying to get the community involved. Like all of those ideas are pretty much his, and his, I think, is our longest serving guy on the team. I'm pretty sure. And it's funny that you wouldn't necessarily maybe think that, but most of the community people that are feeling like very strongly about communities, it's all good. It happens.
Sorry.
The dog sometimes. It just makes the conversation even more human. It's all good. So it seems like there's a very strong correlation between serving and doing like military work and doing stuff that are community-based kind of at their core, and then later on being very interested in doing it and applying that to just other sectors. And Web3 just seems to be very inviting of that. So very interesting from my perspective. Do you see any, let's say, parallels between the camaraderie that you might have had in the military with your team and kind of applying that to develop loyalty in Web3 gaming communities? Is there anything there that you were able to translate?
Yeah, it's a really good choice of words again. I'm really enjoying this. So I'll pull out of this one, developing loyalty in Web3 communities.
Mm-hmm.
Web3 like users are super interesting, and I love to learn a lot about them. But one of the things at the moment is like how do you know someone who wants to stay and play your game and who actually wants to become part of the community and believes in what you're doing. And then also you've kind of got the other Web3 user who's maybe only here for the speculation or extraction based things. For example, like a play to airdrop, for example. So when you said developing loyalty, I think that's one of the hardest things to do in Web3 gaming is to identify why are people here and how important is developing that loyalty. So there is a lot of crossovers. Like from a camaraderie standpoint, developing loyalty was like paramount to do your job. And it's actually something I've taken into my job now is when I'm really stressed. I know it sounds extreme, right? You'll probably clip this and be like, Jase, what are you doing? But like, I just sit back, like I'll be having loads of deadlines, something will be going on. There'll be a bit of fire in Discord. Like I still need to release this TikTok live and stream the game. Stress level's really high. I literally go, am I going to die? And it's easy. The answer's no. And then instantly my stress is like, okay, it's fine. Because we've been in those kind of, exactly. Yeah. It's proximity and kind of what it means. Is it that serious? Is it life threatening? And if you've ever been in one of those situations, you don't have to be in the military to have had that. It really offers you a fresh perspective, which allows you to focus on what you need to do. That was a bit of off tangent from developing loyalty, but
it's really good though. Like, go for it. I'm loving it. That was very good. Interesting. So I want to stay like a little bit and to explore the military thing a bit further. So you said that like pretty much building that loyalty, which for me means kind of building trust, really, with users, because users are looking to, maybe not all of them, but some will look to hop from one project to the other in the hopes to maybe hit one, if we're talking about the financial aspect or the airdrop hunters. Even those, if you are able to convince them that they don't need to hop around anymore, because this is it, like that's the project that you should invest your time in, or kind of almost hook them into actually seeing what you're trying to build and actually believing in the cause, they will stay. But from my experience, at least, the way to do that is to offer them the opportunity to actually have some skin in the game and actually give them an opportunity to contribute in some way. Is that something that you explored in any way with your community, with the Moonfrost community?
Yeah, I'd say it is important. And that type of like particular Web3 user or player archetype is very valid and wanted in Moonfrost, and especially over other games. But one of the big things for us is that's almost where I personally see like airdrops and incentivizing users, it's alternative to user acquisition. So instead of spending a load of money on, I don't know, ads on Facebook, we can actually give some money to the user, which is fantastic. Like, I'm all for that. But the negative side of that is that user going to just leave?
Yeah.
Because then it's wasted. So we have explored that, and we do plan to do some more kind of Web3 native things. But what we really want to make sure first is the game can retain players because the game is fun, and how we get that feedback is from not heavily incentivizing campaigns. Otherwise, you're going to get false data. So you'd make something which no one wants.
That's for sure. So when we talked earlier, you mentioned like a golden cohort of 2,000 superfans. The first thing I wanted to ask is why 2 instead of 1? Because I know like there's the book 1,000 True Fans. I'm not sure by who, but I'm pretty sure I read it, and I'm pretty sure I liked it. Also, it was just a while back. Why 2 instead of 1? That's my first question.
Why 2 instead of 1? Yeah. But no, yeah, you were right. So the original piece was 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. And I know you're aware, but for the listeners who haven't read it, please read it. It's awesome. But the TLDR, if your time is precious, which everyone's is essentially Kevin Kelly predicted the internet would allow large groups of people to make a living off creations. So if that's like content creation, influencers, etc. So that's where this idea stemmed from. And I was like, okay, well, we're not a content creator studio or anything like that. We're a game studio. So what would happen if we lean into that philosophy of if we only had 1,000 super fans? And what I mean by that is like, they're like the core community. They're buying the product. They're playing the game. What would that look like for us? And that's where this kind of community-led marketing approach actually came into play. You asked why 2,000 instead of 1,000. Well, nice and simply, I'm ambitious, and I thought, right, has anyone ever done this? Does anyone have in Web3 right now 2,000 super fans that buy every single product you release who actually enjoy it?
There are a few that I'm like, maybe, but I can't really say for sure, like 100%.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point I was getting at. There may be people, but right now, we can't say for 100%, like, yes, this game does this. There are some really good games now in Web3, and I'm super happy how the space is developed. But I want Moonfrost to be like, Moonfrost has that super fan community. They have them because of this, which may not even be Web3 users. They could be free-to-play players who are maxing out on other elements of the game.
Nice. So you pretty much went over why that's important. How? Like, how are you going to actually build that cohort of 2,000 people? What's the plan? Like, what are you doing?
I love when people say how. Like, it's almost like on Twitter where you just say like, I created 1 million followers in a week. Well, how did you do it? And then like, like Homer Simpson going back. No, great question. So like the goal is to get those 2,000 super fans, or golden cohort, how I like to call it. We may not get there, but I will do my hardest to get there. And the way I'm trying to build up the community side, working with the rest of the game development team, is linking community up with game development. And I'm trying to create something called like a co-developer, which I'm labeling a community developer. It is that super fan, that super user, someone who not necessarily will be the biggest player of the game, but they've got more skin in the game because they're emotionally attached and their actual thoughts and input is valued and seen.
It does. And it's very, like, the title of a community developer is very interesting to me, because everyone are looking for some type of reward. Some of it is monetary, obviously, like we talked about airdrop hunters and whatever. But a lot of it is just like status and recognition, and just like, okay, like I just wanted to recognize, like the team to recognize that I'm actually useful and to actually enable me to be even more useful, because I really want this thing to succeed. And that's kind of what it seems to me like you're trying to unlock with the community developer group. Is there any like extra access or anything in that regard that they're getting by becoming those community developers?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're getting like extra access. What they get is a stronger relationship to me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am a person, not just the head of community, but also like to the team. So one of the big things we're trying to do is like at the moment we're in a closed alpha. It's quite easy. If you're part of our audience, you can play the closed alpha if you claimed a code. So we email it to you and you can claim it. That's just recently we did for Alpha Release 4. Once you get what we call a founding Frost Hunter, which means if you've played in any alpha release, you get that role in Discord. You can play in any release. So you can kind of see the progression of Moonfrost. It isn't like you can play this one, you can't play this one. And one of the big things we love to do is like we do a survey at the end of the release. And this thing like blew up for us. So we were expecting like, okay, I think Alpha Release 3, we had about 5,000 players. And we were like, okay, what's a good benchmark for a survey response, which is quite lengthy. You're probably going to take minimum 10 minutes to complete this. We're like, okay, well, we're like, I don't know, 5% would be good. Trying to look at benchmark figures and everything online.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours, we had 2,000 responses. People were not only filling out the survey, I had gameplay guides. Someone created a document and then said like, hey, can I attach a PDF? It was a 10-page game design guide. Because they're a game designer for a different game, like, and they were like, "Hey, it's really cool, but there's loads of things you can do." And it was awesome to kind of get that, and we had a variety of people doing that across the entire of the release, but also like Web3 stuff as well. So it's really, really interesting.
Love it, and it seems very much like Web3 culture. I would say, like from my perspective, we had a similar experiences with kind of community members really over delivering. And you're like, what the hell? Okay, thank you. I didn't expect that at all. It feels to me very much like a Web3 thing. And that's part of what I love about it. So you mentioned that you pretty much moved into more of a just transparent, building in the open type of attitude. How is it like? Like, what's the benefits? What's the challenges in doing that?
It's yeah. I wouldn't say it's easy.
Give me one. Give me the hardest one and the most, let's say, fulfilling one about it.
I'll start for the fulfilling one. I'm always a positive person, half glass full and all. The fulfilling thing for us as game developers, and especially for me, it's honesty and transparency. You're building trust. You're showcasing people what you're building and getting that input into that. And that really helps build relations. And I love chatting to people. So when I'm working, I don't consider community engagement. So when I'm in Discord, replying, chatting to people as work, I don't do that when I'm actual working hours, because I enjoy it. It's like a hobby. It's an interest in building relations. So for me, personally, that's what I really love about it, is getting to build things with people and building relationships with those people, making friends essentially whilst building the game together. Is the positive.
Nice. Okay, well, you have to talk about the negative. You can't. I'm seeing you trying to actively avoid it, but we need one.
We need one. All right, I'll like double barrel on you. So number one, consistency and cadency. When you open up to being more transparent with game development, people will like or want to see updates. That's fine. But then they want to see updates faster than the game team can develop the game.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, it's been a month. Why haven't we got pets in the game yet? And then, so you get that kind of like negative sentiment of like, you're not building fast enough. And then I'm like, the team will burn out. If you want this game, we need to make sure we've got like the team's kind of healthcare in mind. So they can't just be constantly coding for 20 hours a day. That would be one of the harder ones. And then also, this kind of like false engagement metrics. It was happening in Discord about like 18 months ago when there wasn't many games out. People were just chasing this like engagement. So like Gartic, which is, I enjoy it, but I don't believe how it's going to build a strong community using tools like that. which don't relate to your game.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a slight shift now. Maybe it's just me in my own bubble, but it seems like people like care less about the chat going like 24/7, everyone saying GM to each other. People are like, okay, like we got it. Like it's not real. Like no one is really putting too much value into that anymore, which is good for us, for everything that we do. So we're coming close to the end, and it feels like I have pretty much time for maybe one or two questions. So I wanted to ask, what you would say is one or the most important lesson you have learned while like building the Moonfrost community, or just taking the journey ever since you joined? And then if we will have the time, I would ask for an advice for a fellow community or aspiring community managers, or anyone that wants to either build or participate in a community.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry, I literally looked at the time. I was like, wow, I must have been talking too much. Up flew.
You're good.
Awesome.
Yeah, you talked just the right amount. Don't worry about it.
Cool. Yeah. So one of the important lessons I've learned from kind of building the community for the last 3 years. Great question. I think probably the most important thing I feel is having a strategy which doesn't shift too much with the ups and downs of cycles and trends and like things like that. So what I mean is like Web3 is so fast, and like first it was like whitelist events, then it was play to airdrop events. Now meme coins are blowing up.
Yeah,
and like
PFPs,
some teams are rushing and trying to get something out, PFPs, etc. From my standpoint is like, if you believe in what you're building, build a community strategy and a marketing strategy around that. And then you can use these kind of trends or hot topics to leverage, but it doesn't change the final thing unless there is a massive shift in like, those users don't exist anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we shouldn't expect any Moonfrost meme coin anytime soon. You killed that dream for us, I guess.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't say if one of that is coming anytime soon. It's quite funny. We have like Web3 channels in work, and someone will like throw something out like that, and then I'm just going to be there like, you deal with the community side of this thing, because I'm not.
That's a shit show. We had a community proposal that was actually like by one of the team. Like it was just like a back and forth with the community on like a live call, and decided to launch an AI agent. We're not really doing it. Like, we're not doing it, but we were fucking around in the chat saying we would launch an AI agent, which is actually a DJ, and called the ticker Degen with DJ instead of Degen. So
I'm going to steal this idea.
Yeah, the virality potential is massive, but don't expect us to do it anytime soon. If anyone wants to run with it, go for it. It's going to be funny anyways. So what would be really the one advice, and we will round the episode there. What would be the one advice that you can give to other people, aspiring community managers, or people that are trying to build a community in the Web3 gaming space, even on a budget?
My main advice to someone is, well, first off, if you're an aspiring community builder, find something that resonates with you, that you can turn it into that lifestyle. So I'm not going to say you have to work 8 hours or over 8 hours a day. Like I'm not going to say that's your life. You can do what you want. But when you have such passion about something, it turns from work into lifestyle. So if you can find something you really truly believe in, and that could be anything. Maybe you're not into like gaming. Maybe you're into content creation, and you want to build a community that way. Is find something you love and do that. And then when it comes to working with the studios from the other side of things, is like you've already like covered it in the questions, like trust. So the reason why I've been at Moonfrost for over like almost 3 years, which is kind of unheard of in a Web3 space, everyone kind of moves around pretty quickly. Like that means something. So not even if it only means something to me, but I believe it means something to the founders, but also anyone after Moonfrost, because eventually I'll probably move on. Hopefully I'm going to be here for the next 5 years, continuing to build Moonfrost, and we're going to have a great time building it together. But after that, I think it will come in it'll be leveraged in that sense, because they're like, oh, you've done a full product start to finish. You've built out the community. You've built the strategies. You've learned where you went wrong. And now you can do something even better.
Yeah, I very much agree. There's a lot of value in actually finishing something off and not just like hopping around from opportunity to opportunity. That's for sure. Okay, we're pretty much at the last like 1 or 2 minutes, and I want to leave you with some time to plug your stuff. So thank you very much for joining us, obviously, and I wanted to ask, where can our listeners, our watchers find you and find Moonfrost?
Awesome. So for myself, I'm mainly active on X or Twitter, as most people in Web3 are. I still really like the platform. So I go by the handle Jase the Wizard. So yeah, you can find me on there. That's the main
links in the description, as always. Just
perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, nice plug. But then Moonfrost wise, yeah. So Web3, I'd say still Twitter again at Moonfrost Game. However, we are starting to outreach onto other platforms. So like our TikTok is doing really, really well. Please go follow us over there. I think we just had we're approaching 200k views off a funny meme video. So yeah, go and have a laugh with that, and then join the community. Actually become a community member and jump in Discord. And I'd literally love to have a chat with anyone. So. Let me know.
Nice, loved it. I might need to send you a couple of messages about TikTok, because we're exploring that uncharted territory for Web3 Deviants. We're exploring it as well. As always, thank you everyone for tuning in, for listening, sharing, liking, subscribing, reposting, whatever it is that you choose to do. We appreciate it very much. And thank you, Jase, again, for your time. I think that was I had a blast. So usually when it feels like a fun conversation, the episode is actually very decent as well. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye.